In this video, I'm going to be talking about software documentation. So when you're designing software, we talked about software development lifecycle. So starting from software development lifecycle, we also talked about a portion called documentation. So software has to be documented. Documentation means that you have to write all the details about the software. The source code, the database architecture, the process architecture, the user interfaces, the API design, everything that a software has to be documented for future references and for also for onboarding processes. So let's say if you've been designing a software for the past 6 months and a new developer, we need maybe, let's say, a team of new developers and 3 of them to join the team. Once we have the documentation for the software, it becomes easy for everyone to follow through how the software is operating. Okay, but anyway, let's focus up on software documentation today. So what really is software documentation? Okay, so a software documentation simply means it's just written text and illustrations that explain how software is developed, how that software works, how to maintain the software, and how to upgrade the software. So it's just a book. Okay, let me call it a book. Yeah, it's just a book. It's a journal. You get it. It's got all the notes on the designs, the variable convention. It tells you how the software is developed. By how the software is developed, it tells you the programming language is used. It tells you the version of the programming language, the database used, the language of the database, the types of the database, the architecture of the database. So the software documentation covers all the aspects of the software being documented in one single book that can be given to developers and also to users. Okay, so that is what a software documentation is. So there are types of software documentation. The first one is known as product documentation. So product documentation is a documentation that you write about a software developed, but it's meant for end users or operators. What I mean by end users is the people who receive your application to use it. For instance, Microsoft is a developer of Microsoft Word, but yet I am an end user of Microsoft Word. They developed it, I'm using, so I'm the end user. Okay, so this type of documentation or the product documentation is given to end users. So when you buy a software product, there's usually a documentation that will come with it. Even if you buy a phone, there's usually a documentation that will come with it. That documentation that comes with it falls under the category of what? Of product documentation. So meaning you are documenting your software as a product, just like any other product on the planet that you buy from a grocery store, right? You document it. Okay. So under product documentation, we have the first type of documentation known as user documentation. So user documentation, these are documents that you write specifically for users. For example, things like user manuals and frequently asked questions about the software. So how to operate the software. Let's say documentation belongs to the user. The developer already knows that we don't need that. It's the user who needs that. Okay, so we have user documentation. So we have system documentation. So system documentation, it's a user documentation, but it's a bit more technical. It just doesn't talk about usage. It talks also about other things, maybe about how to install the software on a different machine, how to install the software remotely. It's mostly for operators. An end user is just someone who's consuming the features of the software, but an operator might be using your software to offer services to other end users. Okay, so operators need more technical information about the software. So that marks the first category of documentation, which is product documentation. It has two branches. It has user documentation and system documentation. Second category of documentation to be aware of is known as technical documentation. So technical documentation about a software is documentation that belongs to software engineers and developers. This one is strictly for developers and software engineers. So if I let's say I buy a software, technical documentation is not shipped with the software that I buy. What is shipped with the software that I buy is product documentation. The technical documentation is detailed or written. It's very, very technical. It talks about the development of the software and what the software is made up of and how it was made. And it is for the engineers who are working on the software or new engineers who are joining the team that is developing the software. It's not for the end users. Okay, so it's for software engineers and developers only and only. So some of the things that you're going to find in technical documentation. So technical documentation goes with the type of software and also the size of the software. Okay. And it varies from one software to another. It's not always the same, but it might have some portions that are the same. For instance, you might have these common parts like the database architecture. So database architecture will just show you how the database is arranged or how the components of the database are arranged in that software. Okay. So you're going to have system architecture. You always have system architecture. So this is architecture that shows you how the entire system is how the entire system is interconnected. This documentation must always be there when developing a software. We have an API architecture. So API architecture, if you're integrating an API or you built an API for the software, you must document the API as well. Then we have source code documentation and test documentation. So when you're testing a software, you have to document the type of tests that you have done and the results that you got. Okay? Source code documentation just means you talk about how the source code is written, the language that you used, the variable naming convention. We'll look at variables later on in this series. Okay, so basically that's what documentation of software is. So all software that you're going to develop, you must document it. And remember, in the software development lifecycle, I talked about designing. Okay, designing of what? Of software. You must design every software before you start developing it. Okay, so that design also stands as part of what? Part of the software documentation. Okay, so this marks the end of the lesson on software documentation.